2 more seconds. All right. Well, welcome folks to another ACT-IAC Network and Telecommunications Community of Interest. I'm Robert Sears with the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, and I am going to be your host today for this program. We have a great speaker here. We have Robert Hamlett here from the Department of Homeland Security. I'll introduce him here in a bit, but let's go through a little bit of ACT-IAC housekeeping, if you will, about our NNT, and then we'll jump into the presentation or the program here of the day. So again, welcome. So our network and telecommunications of interest here under ACT-IAC is really here to provide clear and partial feedback and recommendations on network and telecommunications issues identified in collaboration with government projects. So we're really here to help bind industry and government in the context of better networking, data networks, internet, all the things that come around communication, and how we could better that across the federal government with our partnerships with the private sector. So our leadership, I'm the government chair. Again, I'm with the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. We have Richard Zelkowitz, who's our industry chair, independent consultant. Stephen Brand is the vice chair from Department of Energy. Stephen Mathern, our industry vice chair from AT&T. We have Deidre Murray from Deidre Murray and Associates, our program co-chair. Lee Mosier, our program co-chair from Fortinet, and also Ginger Crawford, our communications co-chair. So we have a great team here, broad range of disciplines, backgrounds that make up our NNT. So we have a lot of different activities that we've planned out for this year. For those who've joined us in the past, as we started the new fiscal year, we had the overview of our first set of projects from the previous year that was on the terrestrial use, or the operational use of non-terrestrial technology. So we had those, I believe all those recordings are available on the ACT-IAC site. We have today our DHS Spectrum presentation, and we have some future NNT projects coming up. And you can see here on the calendar, I believe the TBD on the NNT project interest meeting. If Renata, if you could pop that into the chat, I did not get that added in here. But that's another one that folks, if you're interested, could be part of as we look at our some of our next projects coming up here, which I'll go over here in a second. And we have some new, in the new year, we have an overview of DoD 5G, so definitely come back to see that. And we are working on a joint NNT GSA project with Jake Marcellus from GSA. That's on a network, the kind of the next gen modernization of networks. So we have some projects. Again, every year we do 2 projects. We've completed one, the operational use of non-terrestrial network technology. That paper is out and available on the ACT-IAC website. We did 2 presentations on that. What's in progress also is retirement and replacement for legacy copper networks. That's getting close to coming to completion. And then the next generation network task force in collaboration with the acquisition COI, that's another project that's in progress. And then we have our new two new ones teed up for this year, modernizing federal networks from the campus and beyond. That's really taking cues from not just the non-terrestrial network, but the legacy copper as you look at the modernization of networks in the federal government, deal with infrastructure within a campus, infrastructure that in the wide area, the local area, and all the way, into the internet and cloud. So we want to look at all those different elements kind of cohesively, because it's not just one effort, right? You do have local infrastructure within facilities that need to be looked at as well. So we're really really excited to pull that together, and the foundations of connecting government and people. So a lot of the money that comes in from government for broadband and other agencies that do projects that push and accelerate either broadband or new infrastructure, we really that go straight into communities or services, and we really want to highlight those. So please look out for those, and we'll definitely solicit interest from anybody in the community that wants to be part of that. So without further ado, I want to introduce Robert Hamlett Jr., and he is with the Well, he's a seasoned leader in the artificial intelligence, governance, and engineering division within the Chief Technology Officer Directorate at the Department of Homeland Security. Previously, he served as the Deputy Branch Chief for the Joint Wireless Program Management Office within the IT Operations Division under Department of Homeland Security Office of the Chief Information Officer. In his role as the Deputy Branch Chief, Rob played a pivotal role in advancing radio frequency spectrum governance policy and management across DHS. He supported the branch chief in overseeing a team of spectrum management experts specializing in domestic and international radio frequency spectrum policy, certification, and licensing. So, a great background. Really excited today to hear from you, and I will advance the slides for you. But definitely, Robert, take it away. And if there's anything else you want to say about yourself, please do. It's great to have you here, and I'll hand it over.
Thank you, Robert. That was an excellent introduction, and I'm humbled and very appreciative just to be here today to present really an information brief on the Joint Wireless Program Management Office. DHS is very much of an enigma for most people, especially those outside the federal government. So hopefully we'll be able to answer some of those questions today. So officially, good morning, everybody. As Mr. Sears mentioned, my name is Rob Hamlett, and today I'm presenting an information brief on the Department of Homeland Security's own Joint Wireless Program Management Office, or otherwise known as JWPMO. I take great pleasure in presenting today and would like to thank the entire community of interest for this opportunity. Really think of this, I would like everybody to think of this as really a crash course into the behind-the-scenes look into what makes up the secret to DHS's wireless success. We see and recognize there are other federal agencies that do this very well, but we consider ourselves the powerhouse within DHS that keeps our nation safe, connected, and prepared. While I'm advancing through the presentation, I kindly request that everyone hold all their questions to the end for our Q&A session. And with that, we'll go ahead and see the next slide, please. Okay, slide. All right, great. So, by the way, they say managing spectrum is a bit like keeping the Wi-Fi stable at a family reunion. Everybody wants a piece and nobody wants to share. Sorry, that was my bad attempt or good attempt at bad humor relating to RF spectrum. We all know it can be a little bit dull sometimes. But like any good story, we have a structure. We'll start with the basics. We'll go over who we are, what we do, and why it matters. And then we'll explore the critical role of spectrum management. And then we'll culminate the brief with our FY24 accomplishments, leaving room for questions at the end. So a little bit of a spoiler alert. There's a lot to unpack here, so put on your seatbelts, folks. Next slide, please. Okay, so the JWPMO operates at the heart of DHS's mission to protect and serve. Spectrum, albeit the invisible backbone of modern communications, ensures mission agility, security, and resilience. Our commitment isn't just to technology, but it's more importantly to the people and the operations that depend on it. Our office likes to reinforce the ideology with our vision statement, ensuring sustainable DHS access to the radio frequency spectrum that delivers mission agility to ensure safe, secure, and a resilient homeland. And we back that up with our motto, commitment, resilience, and exceptionalism. Next slide, please. So throughout DHS, it is actually one of the largest federal agencies within the federal government. Our office supports a federal workforce of nearly 300,000 personnel. That's right, 300,000. And that rivals most federal agencies. Our department ranges from everybody from Secret Service to FEMA, and even the Coast Guard when they're not actively participating in a Title X Department of Defense role. And each of these components heavily relies on a seamless communication to execute their critical mission sets, whether it be border security, disaster response, or even counterterrorism. They are all attuned to the same wavelength, ours. Let's talk a little bit about some of our other components that are here on the slide. Some of you that are might recognize some of these, and some of these are a little lesser known. Obviously, some of the more popular ones are the U.S. Immigration and Customs Service, ICE. I previously mentioned U.S. Secret Service, TSA, CBP. Most people don't recognize the U.S. Coast Guard as a member of the Department of Homeland Security, but it is. We also have an Office of Homeland Security Situational Awareness, OSA, as well as a Countering Weapons of Mass Destruction Office. So as you can see, we cover quite a breadth and depth of different business lines within the department. Next slide, please. So within the department, one of our directorates is called Management Directorate. You might have seen that highlighted in green on the previous slide. Well, our office resides within the IT Operations Directorate, directly under the Office of the Chief Information Officer, led by Mr. Eric Heisen. Mr. Heisen is a presidential appointee, and he will be reaching the end of his tenure at the end of January and will be replaced. We have not formally recognized who his replacement is going to be, but Admiral Chris Bartz, U.S. Coast Guard Admiral, is currently the Deputy CIO and will ensure the continuity of the CIO office in Mr. Heisen's absence as we transition to a new CIO. Next slide, please. Now, within our powerhouse of Federal House employees, we have, on the table of organization, we have 7 total federal employees. We're currently staffing at 5. And then our contractor support, depending upon what the operational requirements are, fluctuates anywhere between, I'd say, really to about 10 to about 20 on average. So we'll keep an average of about 15 folks. And you can see our organization here is the branch chief. We have a resource manager, and then we have 6 separate lines of effort that we like to task organize by. I'll go into those a little bit more in depth here over the next couple of slides. Next slide, please. All right, let's talk about the great stuff, the radio frequency spectrum. Most of us in this community of interest recognize what the radio frequency spectrum is, and it even sounds like a bit of a sci-fi term to some folks, but it's as real and as tangible as the airwaves that brought you your text messages this morning and even helped some of you place that online order at Starbucks. Little known fact that DHS is the third largest federal spectrum user, managing over 26,000 licenses. And fun fact, I mentioned third only because DHS falls in line to DoD, Department of Defense, being first with the culmination of all the military departments, followed by FAA. And separately, DHS has more licenses than the entire Coast Guard and the United States Marine Corps combined, and nearly as many as the United States Navy. So that should give you an honest, overall, unfettered look at how DHS not only just influences spectrum policy and usage from a federal perspective, but also from a national perspective as well. Next slide, please. We all recognize that the demand for spectrum is growing faster than the plot twists in an election year. We've all witnessed that this year. With new technologies like 5G and Wi-Fi 6, our role is especially critical. And while the spectrum might be invisible, the impacts are much greater and much visible to everyone. It connects everybody, supports innovation, and keeps our emergency responders in sync. Think of it as the unsung hero of our communications universe. And I've identified a couple of some great facts here that I kind of prefaced here in the last couple slides. Next slide, please. So I mentioned earlier our team wears several different hats. We cover everything from planning and operations to policy development and resource management. We're more or less the control room managing the department's communications channels. And as Mr. Sears mentioned earlier, we have great relationships, and we take pride in partnering and leveraging strategic relationships both in the federal and the non-federal side when it comes to spectrum policy. Our primary business lines involve spectrum planning. A lot of that is categorized by our repurposing efforts that we're obviously undertaking with the National Broadband Plan, the National Spectrum Plan that's currently being enacted right now, and the spectrum planning, the spectrum studies that are going to support the current spectrum relocation efforts. Then we have spectrum operations. That's where a lot of our spectrum certification, a lot of our LCIT and 1494 processes go. Our licensing that we negotiate with federal and non-federal users, as well as resource management to some extent. Then followed by spectrum policy. We have a separate international and a domestic spectrum policy representatives that help us ensure that DHS is staying on top of things. And then lastly, we have a pretty vast resource management section that covers our budgets, contracts, and other administrivia that our office has to support. Next slide, please. So what exactly do our planning and operations and policies do, you ask? Well, if they weren't understood already, spectrum planning is a very involved process. As most of you are aware that have been involved in some type of planning exercise relating to the radio frequency spectrum, there's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of coordination. There's a lot of communication that has to, be executed in order to effectively assign radio frequencies in order to ensure an interference-free environment. Also for spectrum operations, there's a lot that with a workforce as large as ours, our spectrum operations is the largest section within the office. I'm sorry, did somebody have a question? I think somebody just came off mute. That's okay. We'll continue to roll. So that's spectrum operations. And lastly, our spectrum policy. Spectrum policy is probably one of the more important sections. I was directly responsible for this area when I was in the JWPMO. That covers everything from recognizing and responding to executive orders, responding to different pieces of spectrum legislation. Our office coordinated over 50 pieces of spectrum legislation. This fiscal year, I was careful to say that because we ended our numbers in October. So it's obviously a very lucrative business with a new administration coming in. It's a very busy time for everybody. So we're some busy bees. So next slide, please. Okay, we're almost to the end here. And now the headline everybody's been waiting for. What has DHS JWPMO done in FY 2024? Well, we've been doing a lot with the pipeline plans. We've been working feverishly with some of our partners over at MITRE and some other partners in doing and developing some 5G, private 5G networks for research and development purposes. We've been streamlining our spectrum management processes by automating things and getting things going, considering some different AI solutions to help us automate the licensing process. Overall, we've estimated that we've saved about $4 million in service contracts. So that was a very big bonus for us this year. That drew a lot of recognition from the Chief Information Officer. And we try to pride ourselves on efficiency being our middle name, or at least it should be, right? I mean, anytime you can save taxpayer dollars in the millions of dollars in just one office, that is ultimately our end goal. We attended the International Engagement CTEL meeting for the first time in some time this year. So that was a big stepping stone for us. Our certifications folks are at a fever pitch right now. Between certifications and licensing, we licensed over 6,000, just in FY 2024. Excuse me, those were new licenses, not existing ones. So 6,000 new licenses. We support every major presidential and what's referred to as a non-special security event, or NSSE. That could be the Super Bowl. It could be an election. We just support a wide variety of different business lines, and ensuring that our workforce can operate interference-free is our top priority. And last but certainly not least, last slide, please. Okay, the time everybody's been waiting for. This is our question and answer session. I'm going to refer back to our moderator, Mr. Sears, to see how much time we have, but I will stand by and be prepared to answer any questions that might come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, definitely a lot of great information. While we're waiting for questions to come in, and we do have plenty of time for questions, I saw something that kind of sparked my curiosity on this slide here in the spectrum repurposing. Can you talk a little more about Miami Inlets? I know it has a lot of facilities in Miami, and I just happen to go down there a lot, so I just that resonated real quick. So if there's anything worth mentioning there.
No, absolutely there is, and we have a lot of great success stories. So when it comes to being one of the premier federal law enforcement agencies within the federal government, the Miami Inlets is actually one of our more contentious areas next to the southwest border. The Miami Inlets actually extends all the way down, excuse me, to the Caribbean and is actually one of the most heavily trafficked areas domestically that falls within the domestic footprint and international waters. So we've been coordinating a lot with Homeland Security, Special Investigations, and CBP to overall enhance their situational awareness capability and ensuring that they have the utmost and most recent technology that will enable their ability to locate, identify, and hopefully make arrest warrants on different, whether it's drug runners, whether it's human smuggling, fentanyl. There's been a lot of news of fentanyl in the news this year. So we're doing our best to combat that. And our job is our primary goal is to obviously ensure that the federal law enforcement agencies down in Miami have the most current technology to further enable their operations.
Makes sense. That's great. Yeah, sometimes we forget that that the communication, the sensing, all those things are on spectrum, and it's not just guys in boats and guns chasing down bad guys, right? They got to have that communication. They got to know where to go, how to coordinate. So that's really cool. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, we have a question, but if you could finish your statement, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's Miami is just one of those places that continues to evolve. Oftentimes we're a little bit behind the times, sometimes in technology speak, and what is it they say? The bad guy always has a say. So oftentimes we're on top of things, and sometimes we're not. But we're constantly assessing the situations, not just in Miami, but all over domestically, and ensuring that our federal law enforcement professionals have the best equipment available.
Yeah, great. Makes sense. So we have a question, and I'm not sure what the term is, but can you talk about the MEC lab, MEC lab? What are you doing
Yeah.
with the MEC testing? What kind of use cases?
No, absolutely. And so we partner with MITRE under FFRDC, and Dr. Barron hosts a lot of our 5G efforts in our mobile edge computing lab. So that's MEC, mobile edge computing. Right now, we're actually just got a sum of money to conduct a couple of different ideas supporting different communications conduits, I guess is the best way to put it. They're doing some AI development. Unfortunately, I can't go too much into the use cases right now. However, if somebody would like to get some more information further on that, I'm happy to do that. If we can just take down who they are and their email address, I'd be happy to follow up with them.
Great, very good. Yeah. Renata, if you can help with the person who asked the question there, we can grab their information if they want to follow up. So the interaction between, say, like first responders and DHS, what's that mechanism kind of look like? That cooperation, as there's like FirstNet, the first responder net, and all that, and you got an event where you have like a disaster, hurricane. We have a lot of hurricanes this year. You have response. Can you talk a little more about that from the spectrum challenge of multi-agency, cross-agency collaboration and working together in those type of events?
Absolutely, and that's a great question, Robert. So one of the more challenging times, if there is such a thing, for JWPMO is obviously hurricane season. So every year, somewhere within a U.S. in possession, there is a natural disaster that impairs, the either some national infrastructure or somebody's ability to effectively communicate. And so when things like hurricanes or tornadoes or something like that happens, DHS has a mechanism for reporting outages, and instantly, obviously, days leading up to the actual event occurring, our spectrum operations staff, goes on and provides a reporting mechanism to NTIA on what steps we're doing to prepare for that. It also kicks off a variety of different pre-planned packages, whether they come from FEMA, come from CISA, or whoever is going to be responding to that disaster. And they have pre-planned telecommunications packages that they start to dispatch to. FEMA has a variety of different assets. They've got, large assets that essentially occupy an entire tractor trailer truck. So we'll go ahead and start coordinating all of the radio frequencies that are required to operate those assets. There's a very extensive land mobile radio network that obviously activates not just from FEMA and CISA, if you will, but also places like CBP, ICE. There's other federal agencies that operate in the land mobile radio network that rides over some facets of FirstNet. And so there's a criticality there that exists to ensure that those critical pieces of infrastructure stay up and operational for our first responders. So I would say definitely the JWPMO, we actually have folks on a 24-hour clock during those types of operations to ensure that we're not only providing the best communications for our first responders, but we're also available to coordinate with other agencies when other agencies have requirements that they see as critical and must be brought up as well. Great question. Thank you, sir.
No, definitely, it makes sense. Yeah, being in NOAA, we're doing the forecasting and the 7-day out hurricane models and different things and prepping, and we know that information gets down into the first responders and of course people prepping. So it's great to see the cohesion across the agencies when it comes to the communication aspect, which is super critical once the event passes and you got to deal with the aftermath. So it's really good to know that that activity is happening, the cooperation, the collaboration. We do have another question coming in here. So DHS conducts the annual Eagle Horizon exercise. Do you see a need for NOAA to engage in similar emergency response activities, considering the capabilities of NOAA's radio network? And I'll do say, I do know NOAA does participate because I participated in Eagle Horizon from a data networks perspective, but I don't know if you could maybe talk a little bit more about maybe Eagle Horizon events in general and how DHS's role and if in a real world scenario of something happening like cyber attack, major earthquake, the actions that your office takes from a frequency management perspective.
Sure. So I think it's fair to say that Eagle Horizon, we plan and staff that like some of our other SEER and NSSE events because of the scalability of the exercise and the amount of agencies that are included. What I would say is, without getting into too many particulars, it is a fairly significant event for our office. It is very resource intensive. And it is one of those areas where we will scale the proper personnel to be available, not just on the licensing and the coordination side, but also from a spectrum policy side. There are often areas that come in and require immediate attention during large-scale exercises with as many federal agencies such as Eagle Horizon. And so honestly, it's just the secret sauce is in the coordination. I think just as anything else, when you involve that many federal agencies and as being displaced as they are from various locations, I think it's just I don't want to say a normal day at the office, but we treat it just as importantly as we would, let's say, an election, a presidential movement, or anything of that nature. It's all hands on deck, and we're here to support when we can.
Awesome, that's great. Yeah, a lot of different activities that pull in you different ways. And being able to be flexible seems like that's key in what you guys do every day. So we have another question. So this comes from Nicole. First off, thank you all for the important work you do. From your perspective, what are some of the other things you would like the industry and or the public to better understand to support your efforts?
That's a great question. And thank you, Nicole, for your appreciation. I would say that residing and being such a figure, if you will, within the spectrum management process, it's one that we pride ourselves on, but it's a team effort. Spectrum is a collaboration and coordination of many. And oftentimes, especially within the federal government, it can be very challenging. So it's definitely not so much a coordination or a coalition of the willing, but those that are just willing to put forth the extra effort to ensure that everything is being taken care of in times of need. So thank you for that. What would we like from industry or the public to better understand and support our efforts? I think, and from my perspective, I think it would greatly help if we had more engagement similar to this. From a broader scale, the government has plans to auction off more spectrum. I think there's an absolute critical effort underfoot to ensure that federal and non-federal agencies are communicating, when it comes to requirements. Oftentimes when legislation or executive orders are published, sometimes it activates a very concerted and coordinated planning effort. I think that sometimes that shouldn't be the forcing function. I think if we had other opportunities and modalities such as ACT-IAC to be able to communicate, with industry about our needs, about our requirements, I think that goes towards helping everybody. I think 5G and 6G, next G, next gen G, everybody's different interpretation of what the next generation of what wireless and cellular services can be, and offering them to the public is very important. But also there's another side to that. At what cost, do we have to compromise? What requirements, what functionality are we having to sacrifice in order to make that spectrum available? And so I think as long as we can maintain open lines of communication and, share what our concerns are with folks, I think that would better support everybody, not just DHS in particular, but the federal government as a whole with our non-federal partners, because at the end of the day, it is a partnership. And we have to make it work in order to ensure everybody's requirements are being met.
Definitely, that makes sense. And within the U.S., of course, maybe a little easier to collaborate. Can you talk a little about the international challenges when you're maybe don't have the leverage of the agency, the government, and it is more of a possible give and take, or maybe a little insight to the marketplace, how you guys work with international and the spectrum as you're we're globally positioned all over the place from agency perspective. So just curious a little bit more about the international relationships.
No, another great question. I would say one of the more challenging facets is definitely the international landscape. Every year, CTEL, the Inter-American Telecommunications Commission, sponsors, I think it's every year, or maybe it's every 2 years. They sponsor or host, several meetings leading up to World Radio Conference agenda items and things of that nature. And I think the secret to success there is ensuring that you have a seat at the table. When you're a large federal agency such as DHS, oftentimes, things like budgets and operational commitments come into play. And sometimes, we have needs. So it's best to articulate and ensure that our needs are being identified, at those critical, meetings, and ensuring that everybody's concerns are being levied. Obviously, international, forums are managed by the Department of State. So ensuring that our communication with the State Department and ensuring that our concerns and requirements for the spectrum management process are being identified. And then, of course, that they harmonize with our other federal partners as well. I found personally that the secret, to getting agenda items approved, not just domestically, but internationally as well, is advocacy. If you can combine and ensure that you're encapsulating multiple federal agencies' concerns in a particular agenda item or one area of concern, you tend to have more areas of success. So there's a lot of give and take, a lot of coordination that has to occur there. And international spectrum management will always be a challenge for everybody. and it will continue to be a challenge. It's just the importance and the criticality there is just to ensure that your representation there in those is being identified and that your concerns are being levied and ensuring that they're being addressed.
Great, thank you. I do have a question on infrastructure. So one of the things that I see on the science side, and this has come up over the past few years, is there's there's a lot of field science happening, and this is definitely a different area, but it's all about spectrum. So there's scientific instruments that are placed in the mountains to do various sensing activities. There's seismology. There's all this different type of infrastructure, and there's a lot of duplication. And one of the things we're trying to do is say, okay, is there a way to have a common tower, private 5G or 5G or whatever it may be, and standardize so we're not duplicating every time a project goes out. It's basically building the same type of infrastructure. From I guess from what you deal with nationally, do you think there's a lack of infrastructure from a tower perspective, and the means of frequency propagation, or is there a duplication where there maybe is the resources aren't being used as well, like that they could be better optimized from the infrastructure perspective as far as what agencies use versus what the commercial sector uses?
Sure. Great question. So I personally think, and this is Rob's opinion, I think that as a nation, I think we could probably do from a better job on the research and development side of optimizing our use of spectrum. Everybody recognizes the radio frequency spectrum as a finite resource, and so as 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 things continue to evolve and technology maturates, with AI and things of that nature, I think we need to make the proper investments towards ensuring that we're creating new technologies that make more efficient use of the radio frequency spectrum. That's the one thing that we cannot reproduce. And so that and time, right? So I was communicating with some of my colleagues over in Department of Defense is that, time is of the essence. Domestically as a federal agency and with our non-federal partners as well, we need to ensure that we're identifying requirements to invest in research and development and S&T as well, that leverages, spectrum efficiency. We can always become more efficient, in the spectrum utilization process. And I think right now, from an infrastructure perspective, there's, domestically within the contiguous, United States, there's still, anybody that rides up and down a major interstate still has, vacancies in cellular coverage. I think once, some of the non-federal, major network providers can get together and kind of unify their efforts, those vacancies can be fulfilled. I think collaboration with our industry partners and the federal agencies to ensure that we're using and leveraging spectrum efficiently can ensure that, DoD is not going to lose any capability, DHS isn't going to lose any capability, and we're all able to do that and still be able to provide, wireless access to, customers all over the United States and even internationally. So S&T and research and development is a very important topic at DHS, and it's always something that we try and strive to do more of in order to, have better technology and better capability to support everybody.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for the insight. Do we have any other questions out there? Going once, twice. Well, we don't need to, hang on for hanging on sake. This was a, great informative session. For those that want some follow up, please either send chat or to us directly at the leadership here at the NNT. Robert, any closing remarks? Anything you want to end with as far as for this community? Any asks? Any words of wisdom?
No, not really. Again, I'd like to say again, I sincerely appreciate all the great questions today, everyone's participation in the webinar today. DHS takes great pleasure in participating in events like these and just informing, our federal and non-federal partners on what it is that we're doing. And we love the strategic partnerships. We love the collaboration. We're always seeking, partnerships with industry and within the federal agencies to partner on different agenda items and things of that nature as it comes to spectrum policy, and even advancing, different areas like mobile edge computing and 5G. It's always something that we take great pride in, and we enjoy the opportunity. Also, if Robert, if either you or Renetta or somebody, I think my email address is out there. I please encourage anybody, if you have any questions about anything that I've talked about today, or you'd like some follow-up, please send me an email. I'm happy to get you a response as quickly as possible. If I don't have a direct answer, I will certainly make sure that we get somebody that can. So again, thank you, everybody. Thank you to the community of interest for this opportunity today. And I wish everybody a happy holidays.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And definitely thank you, Robert. Thank you, the community. Please reach out. We do have these ongoing programs and projects. We'd love to have folks participate on our two new projects that we covered in the beginning, but definitely please stay active. Communications, data networks, that is the infrastructure of how we do everything that we do. And part of that, of course, is spectrum. So again, thank you all and enjoy your holidays.